Welcome back to the late day wrap up, of which we have plenty to discuss. Following up on this morning's short-term time frame analysis with specific interest on Nasdaq today, as Nasdaq did put in the lower high and continued downwards as we did look at, which is putting downside pressure on all markets right now. So once again, Nasdaq is certainly, or I'd say very likely, the leader. At least that would contrast with what a lot of people do say or think, or just in the general market. But I think that the data is quite compelling at this point. And before I start running my mouth even more, I would like to wish you the best and the happiest. Let's get into it right now. Starting up with Dixie and then looking at some of the major indices and then following up on Bitcoin as well. So with that said, looking at Dixie, still holding the range, of course. I don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of what I typically do say, but hey, what I can say that is more relevant that we haven't already said for like the last fucking 3 months now repeated is that I am looking at this as threatening a full-on reversal, or I shouldn't say full-on reversal, but a nice macro low right here leading up to a big, well, maybe not big move, but a decent sized move to about 92.5. Probably within these next couple of weeks, we do see a great reaction off the 90.5 cent region. Sorry, $90.50 cent region. Yeah, there we go. I think that makes sense. It just doesn't sound right in my brain, but more importantly, I still want to see a weekly closure above this $91 region right here. Ultimately, however, I would still be looking for that move to populate all the way up to about 92.25 to about 92.5. Same area where Dixie did put in that last major low in, what was it? September, October, November, actually, before that next breakdown. At that point, I would be once again on guard for potentially another lower high before another push lower. But I'd want to see that one in real time. At least for right now, I do still favor the upside on this one, and that will put downside pressure on pretty much all markets that trade against the US dollar. Doesn't mean that everything's going to go down, obviously, as we have seen periods of time where both Dixie and major assets do rally with each other, but the weaker ones will be under more pressure. And if the market does want to go for a little bit of reversal, that would certainly play into that narrative as well. Anyways, with that said, I do like this one, actually even more immediately as well on the short-term time frames, like the daily for this one. And I would be looking for this one to give another try back up to above 91 bucks towards about 91, or it's actually already above 91 bucks, but towards about 91 and a quarter-ish to 91.20-ish region. So somewhere around there, and then very likely maybe a short-term pullback. But the reversal is looking like is looking likely within these next couple of weeks here. So again, I'd really mark that one off because this is going to be a nice leading indicator, and move up to 92.5 would put a lot of pressure on markets, to be fair. For reference, when Bitcoin was in October, Bitcoin was trading like in the teens, which was actually pretty damn good, but you can see that that's a stark contrast to what Dixie has done in the last few months afterwards. And if Dixie were to rally back up to that region, you can imagine that will put downwards pressure on price action, obviously, as well as major markets. So we'll go into it now, starting off with Nasdaq. So I do want to follow up on that one because that was one of the few things I was right about this morning, funnily enough. And in Nasdaq, coming down to our 12,800-ish level, of which I think this was very obvious on the short-term timeframes here, putting in a lower high on the 4-hour, death cross on the 4-hour, moving averages between the 55 and the 200, and boom, all the way down. And I would say that this is pretty much where we're looking towards. I do think that it might stab a little bit lower here before the next short-term bounce, like 12.8 region, but after that, I would be on watch for a little bit of a short-term bounce and then come back to it after that. I do want to see it in real time because I still am hesitant to call like a full-on reversal on this one, even though this one does have a lot of things in place here. We obviously do see that the daily does have a head and shoulders in place right now. Volume signature on this one would actually work out, seeing as we are increasing volume on the leg down here, but I really want to see a break below the neckline of about actually 12.8. So 12.8 must bounce on a daily, otherwise we can start to target much lower. There will be bounces along the way, obviously, about 12,350, and what would another level be? 12,500 and 12,350 are the two areas that I look for, but ultimately I'd be looking for a significant downside, probably back down to like the weekly, well, actually not even weekly, no major move downs coming around that region, but probably like the structural area in the low 1200s. So, or sorry, not 1200s, but 12,000s. So with that in mind, I do want to go into SPY now and see how this one's following through. And what do you know? While SPY was looking better in this morning's video, it was Nasdaq that is once again the harbinger of death and despair. And we can see that this one following through after Nasdaq's initial tumble. So Nasdaq kind of set the direction, the directional bias, and then everyone else kind of follows, which I do think really deserves its own merit and really deserves its own kind of recognition, because this one essentially was the most obvious of everything that we've looked at today. And this is the one that is currently playing out, more importantly. So as always, NASDAQ, or at least NASDAQ for like the last few years, has been very much at the pole position. So I do look at it as incredibly relevant and significant. And so that putting in potentially a reversal on the higher term timeframes is certainly concerning. But of course, gonna take its time, which is naturally going to, well, incorporate the fact that it's probably going to take weeks if it actually does want to put another move lower. But in the short term, I'd probably be looking for a bounce relatively soon, around 12.8ish region, maybe 12.850, something like that. Anyways, here's your SPY, here's your Dow Jones, both of which following through. Dow Jones not as nasty here. This one's more or less holding the range as far as lower term timeframes go. Daily is not under significant pressure either, and technically does have a higher low as well. So it's not as dire certainly, but NASDAQ coming down certainly is leading the general market, which is the kind of the general notion that I want to be having on this video. Anyways, moving on from there, sorry, we should actually talk about SPY areas here too. If we were to come down to what would be akin to 12,800 on NASDAQ, what would that be on SPY? Somewhere back down around here at about 38.30 to 38.30 to 38.40ish region. Probably looking for short-term bounces right around there. And then look for NASDAQ on direction if it actually wants to break down. Dow Jones, very likely bounce here actually. Probably does try to bounce back up to like 31,450 or 31,500. Sorry, not 31,500. 31,450 is what is what I'd say. Then I want to come back to it after that. And again, NASDAQ likely does get the direction. If NASDAQ breaks down further, be looking for this one to make another stab back down to like 31,250ish region. Moving on to where's my gold? Where's my gold? Last I looked at gold, it was actually slinking down even further, so maybe it doesn't even deserve to be seen today. Maybe the old rocks are going to be thrown away, never to be resumed again. And what do you know? I believe we looked at this one on this morning's video, and we did say a retest of yesterday's low. Maybe we did say that on yesterday's video. Anyways, either which way, we are seeing that move happen right now. I'm still looking somewhere a little bit below 1700-ish region. I do think that this one does have some more downside to go. We do see a daily death cross very much looming and very much very likely to happen here. I'd imagine unless if this thing sees like a $100 plus rally in the next at the very latest, at the very maximum, a week, but probably even sooner than that, maybe like the next 3 days, the next 3 trading days, that is, we will get a death cross inevitably. And while I would be looking for a bounce off like the 1680 to 1690-ish region, that bounce likely does turn into another redistributive pattern and, well, probably does trade a little bit lower than that. But I want to see that thing obviously populate first. For now, we are getting that next targeted region, we're getting around that next targeted region. So I would be patient with this one and look for bounces somewhere right below 1700, of which, I mean, we're pretty fucking close already. So, it's like how close you want to call it on this one. At this point, I mean, the good part of this, of that last easy move has kind of populated itself. So someone asked a good question earlier today in the Twitch stream. What would make you bullish on gold once again? I don't get bullish on gold, on an asset like this that has so much history until we put in at the very least a weekly uptrend. And as you can see, we've been downtrend on the weekly ever since this area right here on this continuation drop below 1875. I started to become a lot more bearish on about 1855 right here, and this one having further follow through makes me not anything resembling bullish for now. Yes, there will be bounce along the way, obviously, but as far as the monthly goes, I think that we're on a clear collision course with the 21 exponential moving average right there, and probably bounce off there. Could that be reversal? Possibly yes, but I'd want to see that one first. So again, a little bit more downside, but bouncy bounce territory coming up relatively soon, I do think. Anyways, with that in mind, let's go check out Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has been whipping me the fuck around the last couple of days, which is just ridiculous. But more importantly, we did look at the $51,000 region as a nice pivot to the upside, of which that actually did get closed above quite significantly on this last 4-hour and 12-hour closure. So technically speaking, I should be looking for a move back up to this blue box territory, somewhere around 54,000, 55,000 bucks. With what's going on in NASDAQ right now, would I still be holding on to that? To be fair, this is a bit of a different chart right here, as we did make a higher high above these 24th of February highs in comparison to NASDAQ, which actually made lower highs on that last drive, as you can see right here, between this point and this point, same areas, 24th of February versus this last one that we just put in pretty much yesterday to today. And going back to Bitcoin right now, does that make me a little bit concerned that Bitcoin could do the same thing? Plot back down and maybe make another run towards the bottom side of the range? Possibly yes, but I'd still be going off the same areas essentially. I don't have any real reason to kind of change around that analyses as well. I don't really see any real reason to change it around here, because we're still just more or less range bound on the higher term time frames, and the higher term time frame analysis has not changed really at all. And that's why I've been starting with this and referencing it even on these short term time frame videos here, because I think it's really important to be looking at and take take into consideration the whole here, as Bitcoin is, I don't think that there's really anything bearish about this chart on the monthly or even the weekly, that is, long term, obviously. But I do want to point out that 100% of the time that Bitcoin has trended above the topside Toronto bands, which we are doing right now, it has always, 100% of the time, going all the way back throughout the 11-year history of this on both Bitstamp and BLX, we can show, and even on the bi-monthly as well, we've always 100% of the time seen a test back down to the top side of the Toronto band after closing above on the next successive month. And where would that level be around? Well, right now it'd be around about a little bit above $40,000. On the bi-monthly, that same level would be about a little under $39,000. So I would still say that that's a more or less of a range. Actually, no, it's rising up rather rapidly here. No, it's about 38,650. So fair enough, between about 39 and 40 and 41,000 bucks. I do still think that there is at some point maybe a threat of move downside there. I'm probably sounding like a dumb broken record at that point, and apologies if that is the case, but I do think that is worth pointing out, just because there's two ways. There's really only two ways that Bitcoin will test the topside Toronto band on the monthly and by extension the bi-monthly in the coming months, and that is, one, it either dumps down to that level, which would be the low $40,000 region, or it gets so fucking green that it actually pulls it up because it's naturally responding as this month progresses. And if it were to rally up to maybe like 60,000 bucks, then naturally, yes, the topside Toronto band very likely does meet up with the bottom side here, which would be about 45,000 bucks. So two ways for that to happen. One is extremely bullish. One is still bullish, but does incorporate a bit of a downside move here. And looking in line with NASDAQ, it does make me really consider that could happen. So I'm not really being very helpful right now, because I think, like a lot of people, at least what I gather is a lot of people are like on very short-term time frames, which is fair enough. If you're making money on that, more power to you. But on short-term time frames right here, it looks like a bull draft. Sorry, I can't. It is pretty funny though. But when you are on a 5-minute, obviously a $2,000 move is pretty damn significant. Or sorry, $1,500 move here is very significant. Yes, but at the end of the day, I still do look at this as structure first and long-term track and long-term trend as well, both as like the two main priorities. And then on top of that, then I kind of use ranges, kind of mediate the biases for the more immediate trades. In this case here, technically speaking, we've just come back down to test that horizontal that Bitcoin broke earlier. So technically speaking, I should be looking for a move back up here. Could it be that we get front ran, we get a rejection here, and then Bitcoin does join the red dildo party and come down? Possibly, yes, but I really wouldn't be looking for that as a trader until we do see a successive closure below this region. And should we even be using 4-hour timeframes for this, because things are so tight right now? I still think that you could probably use it. I think it's probably fine, to be fair. But ultimately, I would be very, very cautious within this region right here, about 54,000 to 55,000 bucks. I don't really see any real reason to be like immediately super fucking bullish on Bitcoin as long as it's below these regions on both the 4-hour closure above 55,000 bucks or daily above 54,000 bucks. At that point, we can start to talk about a retest of the prior all-time high and very likely new all-time highs, of which the next sort of targeted region based off of our fibs over here is still 62,000 bucks. So I still do like that, but and I still think that's very possible. But the question, as it has been for this last week, is, does Bitcoin put in another low drive first, or does it just trade a little bit of sideways and then do the green dildo party once again? At the end of the day, of course I don't have a crystal ball, but that's why I do use these ranges right here above this level right here. That's when I kind of look at it as green dildo party time. Below this region right here, especially, I start to look at this as, well, more or less fill out the downside first and then try another upside move. But at the end of the day, again, I want to really hammer this in. This is extremely obvious, at least in my opinion, reaccumulation. We referenced this on this morning's video too, looking at the underlying market dynamics. If I can bring it up over here, with the open interest actually boosting up another 500 million. Yeah, $500 million from even this morning's video. So we've seen it steadily rise. If we go over to the market data tab right here, am I sweating? I'm not sweating. Oh. That's so strange. It's like literally fucking 3 degrees outside, but because we're so high up on this apartment building, it like actually gets hot in here. It's kind of crazy. But yes, you can see very clearly from the open interest chart that we've seen, a bit of a bullish reset and reaccumulation as it does find its lows around the 7 billion marker. Now both boosting up about 8.25, we'll say, and price action finding its lows as well and boosting up as well. So this is all good for the long term, and having a bullish reset on the funny rate as well. These are all very, very nice things to have together. So I need to be incredibly fucking clear about that, because if you are more long-term minded, you probably don't give a fuck about, those downside moves, in the shorter term timeframes. Fair enough, to each their own. But I do understand that I'm speaking to a pretty wide audience here, especially referencing an earlier conversation when someone was like saying, is this a rejection? And I'm like, no, not really, because I mean, we haven't really seen all that much off of it just yet. And then I said, what time frame are you on? And he or she said 5 minute. And I'm like, oh, well, then to each their own. It's it's different. It's different mindset there, obviously. So right now, a little bit difficult in the short term timeframes, but I still do favor these areas more or less, and if I did call it right now, I do still think that Bitcoin has a little bit of upside here. I would start to flip back around if you see two things. If you see a 4-hour closure below this level, $51,000, and 4-hour Stokes cross down as well. If you see those two things, as my messy chart, I was obviously charting a different time from there. It's just messy as fuck. But if you see those two things happen successfully, then I would be looking for Bitcoin to come back down, fill at the bottom side of the range, or at least the middle of the range, which would be down about $49,000. At this point, probably a small bounce there, and then continuation a little bit lower, somewhere around the 200 simple and 200 exponential average, which I personally would like to see a lot more, just because that would allow me to potentially get my own positions. But this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Blah 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 blah. Anything else before we go? Oh yes, it should also be denoted here too. So while the lower term timeframes are potentially threatening a little bit of a fake out move, it should also be noted that 12-hour is giving us what? It's given us a few hidden divergences here. More importantly, we do see momentum also still pointed healthily northwards, and we see the same thing on daily as well, which is actually having a fresh cross the upside confirmed as of last night. And also that same hidden bullish divergence coming off the lows right here, which I do still think is actually playing out. So it's kind of like cautionary times, but if I did have to call it right now, do I think, technically speaking, I should be looking for Bitcoin to go to about $54,000, probably get rejected right there, come back down, fill out the range, and then give a try a little bit later this month to the upside once again. So with that said, I do want to wish you well. We'll be back on tomorrow with some more live stream analysis. Take care, and until next time.